Okay, so to start in time again, we hope that you enjoyed your lunch break. So Thomas will do everything that you don't fall asleep, I'm sure. So next is Thomas Gelf. He's talking about Icing Director. So enjoy.
Good afternoon, thank you. Well, hello. Those two sitting in front of you have already been making jokes of me because I'm one of the very few people without an Apple notebook. And as I've been born in South Tyrol, I really love apples. And you know, but where I'm from, they look like this. So, yeah. But for the rest, I prefer to work with a real operating system. As we are now after lunch, and I've been told that after lunch you have to show a lot of pictures because everything else will not work. That's going to be hard because that was the only slide with a picture I had, and I was about to remove it. I love the slide because it's showing I used it time ago to show a new feature we had at the time being, a loop detection. And I guess most German people here know Looping Louis. That's a drinking game. And I used this slide for the first time in San Diego at an Icinga camp, and nobody understood the joke. And then I had a look at Amazon, and you know, the German version, every second comment is a very nice drinking game, very good drinking game. And in the US, it's like, oh, very good game for kids. So yeah, I had to remove the slide. But this is the only one with a picture, so from now on we only have code, screenshots, and web forms. This is basically the structure of the talk. I'll just try to do some live demonstration, tell you what's going on, what we did, and where we want to head to with Icing Director. First of all, who is already using Icing Director? Oh, great. Who never heard about it? Listen. Well, Icing Director, this is its dashboard. Icing Director is a configuration tool for Icinga 2. And let's first start with a little bit of history. So we started with Icinga 1 as a Nagios fork. Icinga 2 is a complete rewrite. We then wrote Icinga Web 2, being a web frontend for Icinga 1 or Icinga 2. You can still use both of them. So we still try to support every Icinga version from 1.5 to the latest 2.6 something. So all of those versions work with Icinga Web 2. Problem was with Icinga 2, it has a new configuration format, and that's fantastic because it gives you much more power. The problem is it isn't a configuration format. It is a DSL, a domain-specific language. So what you can see here makes part of the default Icinga 2 installation. This is part of the Hangman game written in Icinga 2 configuration. So the challenge was writing a configuration tool for something like this. And well, there's VI, but a lot of people initially suggested to use a JavaScript-based web editor. It would work, but it's yeah, that's not what we wanted to have. So well, let's show you. Otherwise, I run out of time. So to getting started with the director, you have to provide a database, Postgres or MySQL or, well, MariaDB or similar. We are also running it on Percona or, well, all MySQL dialects. Yeah, tell director about the database and he'll do the rest. A director has been built with automation in mind, so many people think it's just a tool for people who want to click, but that's not true. Director is fantastic for automation, and this begins with the installation of Director himself. So documentation is just a snippet. Documentation shows a lot of examples of how to get started with Director in a completely automated way. And it's just one example. You can run all the database migrations in an idempotent way and so on. But let's try it out. I prepared an Icinga web installation. Just to show you that I'm not cheating, I'll remove the whole director configuration and its database. Let's log in. And here's my Icinga web. There's no director right here, so I go to configuration. What I already prepared is a database resource. So this is a database connection connecting to another container here. Let's validate the configuration. Everything is fine. We have a database. Then we'll go to our Icinga Web 2 modules, pick the director, it's disabled here, and enable the module. And next I go to the configuration, choose a database resource, that's our configuration, and it's telling me that it didn't create a database schema yet, so let's create a schema. Take some time because the director has a lot of database tables, and once it is ready, we can go to the next step. And the next step is connecting director to our Icinga 2 installation. I prepared one container with Icinga 2, nothing special there. You need to create an API user so the director can connect to the API. And there's still an open bug in Icinga Web 2. It should auto-reload the CSS, but we disabled it because of issues with old Internet Explorer versions. Yeah. Okay, let's create a connection to Icinga. Auto-completion is great. I connect to my master, need a user, director, and give it a password. And there you go. Director is ready. We can go to use it. This link just points to the menu here. We have Icinga Director, and we are ready to use it. Just one more step. Let's create a host. It will tell us that we should please create a template first, so let's do so. Let's close this so we can have a better look at this. Let's create a default host with a check command. You see a list of check commands already here. Those have been, while running the Kickstart, been imported from Icinga, because a standard Icinga installation ships with the ITL, with the Icinga template library, with a lot of commands, so they already have been imported and can be used. And, well, basically that's it. I can configure some parameters related to check execution. I love doing so, because this is a template, and later on I can then resolve all the properties of a single host if I gave him some defaults here. So let's check once a minute, we try every 30 seconds, at least 3 times. Execute the checks, yes. Accept passive checks, send notifications, and so on. There's one important property, volatile. Please set it to no. Who does not know, who is using Icinga and doesn't know what this setting means? Really? Please read the documentation. So setting this to yes would generate quite some notifications, but really it's an important feature, especially if you're using passive events like sending logs or traps or whatever to Icinga, then this setting becomes very important. Okay, I created a template, and let's go back to host and create a new host. And now I say, well, let's create an application server. Here I can import one or more templates. I just have one of them. Okay, give it a display name, an IP address, and there you go. Fine, let's deploy the node. And what we see now is it deployed a configuration to my master. I can click it, and it shows the startup log. Everything seems to be fine. Have a look. Let's have a look at our hosts, and there is app1 with a pending check. Let's maybe force the check, but that's all about it. And it should become green. The default ping pings 3 times with some delay, so I think it's faster. This is just a plugin itself that delays everything a little bit. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. What happened right now? Well, first, I've been running the Kickstart wizard. The most important thing here, to get a connection to Icinga, you have to create an API user in your Icinga 2 configuration, allowing me or allowing the director to access your Icinga 2. And then it runs, it connects to Icinga 2 and imports all existing commands, endpoints, and zones. Endpoints and zones are important because they already have to exist before the director can connect. You can, if you extend your central Icinga 2 components, like having multiple masters, multiple satellites, you can rerun the kickstart wizard and it reimports everything it has to know about your infrastructure. We could do this in an automated way maybe in future, but right now you have to trigger it. It also imports your existing commands. I cannot change commands sitting in user share somewhere owned by root, so these are commands the director cannot modify, but you can inherit them, you can copy them, and you should be able to use them in the director. That's why they are going to be imported, but marked as external objects. Then I rendered the configuration, clicked on deploy, it shipped it to Icinga. What happened here is the director, through the API, shipped config files. Icinga did a config check. Config check was fine, and then Icinga did a reload. So if you somehow manage it to ship broken configuration, don't worry, it will not reload. And after that, director reconnected to Icinga and got the startup log from that former restart and stored it to the database for later, or to be able to use it later on. We'll see this. Then, sorry. I messed up my slides, I guess. Sorry, this should be first. Well, the question was whether you want to have some modification, and let's try this out. Let's go back to the web browser. And here is my host. The director hooked into the web module, so I can click to modify here, come back to the director, and let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's change the IP address to 1, then clone this host, make application 2, and there's, of course, the alias has to be changed, the IP address also, and we can deploy again, of course. What's also pretty cool is that, let's have a look at the deployment. What you see here is it generated 4 files. Let's have a look at them. There's the host configuration. Here you can see my 2 hosts. I can click them, and it goes back to the configuration. And what's also very fun is that I have also my older configurations here, so I can diff it with the former deployment. And I can see all the files that changed. See the difference in that file. Oh, it's the wrong order, so let's take the newer one on the right side, and it would show it the right way. So everything you see here is stored in the database itself. Maybe let's go back to a single host, and let's have a look at its history. And what's pretty cool here is that you see it has been created, and if you go on, it shows all single changes. You can restore the former object if you want, and what happens right now is it adds a new change to that stack, so you can see it moving forward and back, or if I go back to the host, it was this one, history. Here you can see all the changes, so my undo is basically a new action, and it's marked gray, so here you can see that this is a change that hasn't been deployed yet. So I have pending changes, you see it here, there's a 1, and I see 1 config change happened since the last deployment, and also here I see all my changes, and also the one done by the kickstart wizard, and this single change hasn't been deployment, so let's deploy it right now. And here you go, we had another deployment. Back to the slides. So how does all of this work? First, the director stores every single change in its database. And it's pretty cool for auditing, for seeing, allowing you to see what's going on or what went on. And this is also fantastic if we're going now later on in this talk to add some kind of automation, because you see all the changes in your monitoring system, eventually imported from various data sources. And the director keeps track of all of them. Everything is checksummed, so if someone wants, it could sign the changes somewhere, and this would be perfect for an audit trail that cannot be faked, and it allows you to travel back in time. One might ask what happens with the database if I have hundreds of thousands of changes. Well, I know at least one system running productive right now with like 70, 80,000 checks and 1 million changes, or more than 1 million changes since during the last year, and they never cleaned up the database. So I want them to keep the data just to figure out how much it can stand, and it works just fine. Well, sooner or later they will have to purge it, but don't worry. Architecture, just some words. This is a very old HER graphic we used in the first Kickstart meeting to the Icing Director, and it still works the same way. You have an Icinga environment with multiple masters, eventually multiple satellites, and Director connects to one of your masters, the configuration masters, to the Icinga 2 REST API, deploys the configuration, and what's pretty cool is that the Director doesn't need to have access to all your satellites or your Icinga 2 agents, even if you could have thousands of them. The configuration is distributed by Icinga itself, so the Director doesn't really care. You just have to put the objects in the right zone. Who has already used the Icinga 2 API? Cool, perfect. That's a very powerful API. The Director is using only a subset of it. It still ships whole configuration files. As I already just funded deployments with 1 million objects, and you cannot do 1 million single REST API calls to ship configuration. So we generate configuration and ship plain files. It also wouldn't make sense to ship 1 million single files for 1 million hosts, for example. So these are larger files. This makes everything a little bit faster. Yeah. Okay, so as I already mentioned, the Director wants to make configuration easy, and we want to target multiple audiences, and we had labels for them. So initially, they were called CMDB users, Windows users, and so on. We want to serve fully automated environments. So if you have a CMDB or configuration management tool, or using some cloud, you do not want to manually create your monitored objects. This should happen automated all the way during day and night. So this is something Director has been built for, and it works fantastic. It also should work for point-and-click users. Well, it's a web front end, works. But what made everything a little bit more complicated is that Director tries to serve both of them at the same time. And this works. I'll show you some examples. But let's start with the click thingy first. Just a very small example. Let's go back to our Director. I have data fields here, and now let's create one field. And I say I want to have a location field. That's basically a custom variable. And, oh, sorry. No. I can choose a data type, and let's this be a string right now. And let's just one more field. I want to have text, because we learned that database schemas are bad and everything works with text, so no more structure is needed today. Let's add an array. Oh, sorry. An array of data. Oh, here you go. Okay, back to our hosts. What I now do is I go to the template, and I already now changed the default host, but this can be done only on specific templates if you want. Go to fields and now choose my location, edit, also the text. That's fine. You can enforce fields. We do not need this right now. Go to one server and say, oh, here we have custom properties. Location is Berlin. Text, wow, VIP, whatever. You can add more of them. And we have that one. And here we say Nuremberg. And this is, I don't know, a server. You can, of course, add more text. Oop. Also, this is a VIP host, of course. The render configuration is, or looks like this. So you can see. all the properties of the host. These are custom variables. I have the location, I have the text. And what's also pretty cool, I can show the host fully resolved. So it now resolves the default host template, and I can see in one place all the properties this single host has. Whoever or who did manual configuration with Icinga 1 with a lot of templates, did you ever try to figure out where a specific property came from? Okay, and one last thing. What I can also do is go back to my data fields and add a data list. The list name should be locations. And now let's add some location, Berlin. Oh. And one more. Let's add the German name here. And let's go back to our data fields, choose location, and let's say this is not a string, but a data list. Now I have to choose the data list, store it, go back to my hosts, application, IC Nuremberg, choose Berlin, store it, choose both nodes. I see both of them are in Berlin, they have different tags. If I change just, let's clone it one again. Let's make application whatever. And all of them in Berlin, now that's not okay. Let's remove this one and move those two to Nuremberg. Store it, select all of them, and I can see if I change Nuremberg, then this would affect those two hosts. This is the multi-selection feature, so in Director, this is a little bit hidden, but it works like this in many places, and I think in Web 2, just shift and click or press the control key, so you can select or deselect multiple objects and change all of them at once. That's it. So what did we see here? We created custom properties or custom fields. Fields describe just the form fields you are going to provide for specific properties, and Director is going to create custom variables. So the idea is you can provide a wizard-like form where your users choose in a drop-down the SNMP version. Based on that property, you can add other fields and showing the community for SNMP version 2 and all the other 5 properties you need for SNMP version 3 if someone changes the version, for example. Yeah, so given that tool that shows every single action, allows you to travel back in time and allows you to specify the properties someone is allowed to configure in a very strict way, the idea is that you can delegate boring daily tasks to your coworkers and do not have to handle lots of long tickets and forth and back or paper-based forms if someone wants to have a monitored node. I personally, from time to time, work in environments where they still have paperwork, so if someone wants something to be monitored, it gets paper, has to fill it out by hand, give it back, someone is typing it in a form, and then the request goes on. I'm not kidding. Multi-selection, we talked about this, is pretty cool, and we can modify more properties at once. One feature, I've been remembered about this a few minutes ago. We started work on complex data types, so allowing you to say, I want to have a virtual host, and virtual host consists of a domain name and multiple aliases and so on, so you can structure them. We'll ship this. We'll just we're currently working on another feature, and delayed this a little bit. I'll tell you about this later on. So this is definitively coming. It's just a matter of time. What about services? Well, let me just show you a very quick example. It's basically like you go here, create a service template, and say, well, I want to have a service check. Let's create an SSH check. Use the SSH. Sorry. Here you go. Store it. And you have a service. I can now, for example, create an apply rule and say, I want this service to be assigned everywhere where, I don't know, the location is Berlin. And it would then assign the service everywhere. Let's go to the commands related to that service, just to show you something, because this is an imported command, so I didn't create it by myself. I'm not allowed to change this command. You can create own commands through the web interface, but this one is just read-only. But it still allows me to create fields. And here, for example, it already suggests the SSH port as it sees that property on the command itself. And this is SSH port. Well, that's enough. You can, on the service, set a default value. So let's set it on the service itself. Set it to 22. And now let's go to a host, application 1. This one is in Nuremberg, has no service. Application 2 is in Berlin, and this one now has a SSH service being applied everywhere where the host name is Berlin. And you see here that this service has been generated using an apply rule, but it still allows me to override the SSH port just for that specific host. So I can say, no, my SSH port is on 23, of course, because we used this 10 years ago. And let's deploy this, and it should be fine. If I go to my services, no, here you go. The SSH service, check now. It's red, it doesn't answer strange. Well, here I have the custom variable 23. Okay, that's probably the issue here. Yeah, we have seen an example like this. You can create fields based on command level or the service level or on whatever template you want. It was pretty cool. That's something we changed in the 1.3 release. This is what we have seen right now. Overriding properties on services assigned that have been assigned in a dynamic way is pretty cool. Because otherwise, you ended up with a lot of complicated configuration, and the director just does some configuration voodoo in Icinga 2. You can have a look at the generated configuration to understand how it works, but this is very helpful. And this is also pretty cool if you're going to automate your configuration and still want your coworkers to override thresholds. And you do not want to create a lot of weird template magic for that. Then, the Icinga 2 agent, well, there's not much to say about this, just the director gives you a lot of help. Let's show you. Go back to the host, modify it, with the link here. And I can say this host is an agent. Let's close some properties here maybe. And once I choose yes, I can say establish a connection, yes or no. So, for example, you might have agents sitting behind a firewall where they are not allowed to contact Icinga 2. So with that setting, I can control whether the connection is made from the parent node to the child node or the other way around. Of course, if I say no, I have to configure the other part correctly. And I can say whether it accepts config or no. This feature does nothing, because if an agent doesn't accept config, I cannot ship configuration. But we'll use it in future to tell you, well, that agent should accept or does not accept config, but you created a service in a way that would require me to ship something, so please change this. So it has no effect, but it should help in future. And, well, once I stored this one, it added a new tab over here, and this is agent. And right now, through the API, created a certification signing ticket exactly for that host, so you can do your normal certificate signing process using the tickets. This is different for every node. Or you can download a Kickstart script for Windows or Linux and run that one. If it fits your needs, have a look at the script before using it the first time, if it is what you really want to have. And this is very helpful, because it gets your agent up and running. This is generated exactly for that host. Copy, paste, you have the configuration, and you're ready to go. There is more work will go on here for this, because we want to have this automated in a way that you do not longer need one key per agent, but for example, can say, I have one key allowing every Windows administrator to create just Windows hosts, and this key will just allow them to create a node with a specific template, and it wouldn't even be allowed to see other nodes created with that key, because in the creation process, they get as an answer a new key exactly for that host. So you can give the same script, roll it out to all your Windows nodes without a security problem. All they could do is creating new nodes that do not exist with exactly the template and nothing else. So this would make this even more flexible. Okay, that was just for some snippets of the clicky part. I have an example later on, but for now that's it. Next part is automation. And we're not going to click everything, but I would otherwise completely run out of time. But I created another database. So here in the infrastructure sub dashboard, I just switch database, have another director database, and oops, as you can see here, I no longer have any host. I prepare some data. Let's fill the CMDB with some nodes. So that's just an additional database I'm going to use as an import source. So what I see here is I have a CMDB. The CMDB, if I go to the preview, I see a lot of properties here. And did you see that it changed? It had 60 changes here. I didn't do anything, because what I have here are some jobs running in the background. And I changed my database with that MySQL import I did right now. The job running in the background imported the data, synchronized it with my environment, and I have a couple of new hosts. And, well, that's cool. Let's deploy them. And, pardon? You can see here there's a problem right now. Oh no, well, this one is pending. Let's have a look. Oh. Here we go. Okay. They're arriving. They're being checked. Everything fine. I have a lot of hosts. Let me explain you what I did here. I created some import sources. Director offers you to import data from a lot of different sources, and I just use an SQL-based import source. If you have a look at this, you can see it's SQL, and I just do select everything from host, and that's it. And I had to tell it the key column name. That's important. I added a modifier creating an alias property from the host name by stripping the domain name. There are a lot of modifiers you can use. I'll show you another example later on. I imported locations and operating system families and so on. Because if I have a look at my host here, what you can see is that my custom properties are made up in a way that I can choose whether this is a virtual device or an application server, the location, of course, the operating system family, and so on. For example, if I switch virtualization and say, no, this is a physical server, then, the virtualization type field went away. So you can also build those fields in a wizard-like way, saying, if I choose that property, then do not offer other fields. Let me show you how this is going to be configured. I have a default host with some fields, and there is one field, virtualization, and this is only shown when the device type is virtual server. And you can create complex rules here with a lot of and or and nest it as deep as you want. And that way you can create custom wizards offering a lot of possibilities. Then let's run one more SQL query. I have one that creates a new host, or should remove, add a host, okay. And let's do nothing. Just wait. If you go to the activity log, we should see, oh, it happened now. So there is a new action. And this is a host. Just for fun, let's remove it again. And right now I also do nothing, just waiting and reload. Because what I want to see is that it imports that host, it sees a different, I have two changes right now, and the next job should pre-generate the configuration, and you can see it realized that the configuration is the same as it used to be before. It didn't do a deployment, it just shows me, hey, nothing to do, the configuration is the same. So if you change something forth and back, and it re-renders the configuration, it understands that there's no change right now. What's also pretty cool related to this is when I go to my deployments, I see all the deployments I did. I see failed ones. I can have a look at the error, jump there, jump directly to the file, and I can see it how it used to be at the time being. And I can say, well, I want to deploy that configuration here. So I go to the configuration, redeploy it, and now it deploys something completely different. I have no idea how it compares to my current environment. And if I go to my activity log, I see that 263 changes happened since the last deployment. So what happened right now is I used a very old deployment and didn't run anything. These are the files, or exactly like they used to be at the time being. This is fantastic if you, for example, have everything automated, and then someone deletes all your nodes from the CMDB. Automation goes wrong, hosts are going to be misconfigured, and they have been vanished from the monitoring. So total panic, and the tool that should help you to figure out what's going to be wrong is empty. No problem, you know that yesterday at 11 o'clock it works, so go back, pick the old deployment, redeploy it again, and your monitoring is fine. Stop the automated jobs. It's just one flag in the settings, so nothing happens in an automated way anymore. Monitoring is working. You're going to see what's really going to be wrong, and then you can slowly clean up the mess and restart your automation. As an import source, we support a lot of databases, MySQL, Postgres, also MS SQL and Oracle if you configure the Icinga web in the right way. I heard about people having trouble with Microsoft SQL. If someone can give us access to a system allowing us to test with this in some way, because we do not have Microsoft equipment, so it would be great. Because for some people it works, for others it doesn't. So if you need help with MS SQL and have a chance to give us access to a system, please let us know. But in theory it works, or in practice, at least for some people. LDAP or Active Directory is pretty cool. In the documentation is one example showing you how to import all your servers from Windows Active Directory, and then it really imports all properties with everything what's there. But if you're going to do this manually, you will learn that, for example, there's no IP address in Active Directory, so where do you get this from? Or why do I have the SID in clear text and you know that it is binary in the Active Directory? The answer is we have modifiers. There are a lot of modifiers transforming data, decoding binary SIDs, decoding JSON strings. For example, if you have a relational database and want to create an array in the director, that's complicated because there is no array in a database. So modifiers allow you to split this, for example, at a comma and create an array and so on. So this is what they're for. And if they're not enough, they're hookable. So you can either create a pull request or feature request and try to bring this upstream, or write your own one in a custom Icinga Web 2 module, and you can ship your own code doing your transformations. I've seen people doing trace routes to figure out what the parent host is as a hook. There are additional import sources or sitting in custom modules like the file shipper for YAML files or CSV files, JSON, and so on. There is AWS for those who are living in the cloud, for EC2 instances, load balancers, auto-scaling groups, and so on. There is a PuppetDB module where you just can choose the exported types and sync them. Works great. And the advantage of this is that it's much faster because you do not have to wait for the next Puppet to run on the monitoring server, but you can run this a lot faster against the API, and as soon as you have one deployment, you can roll out the monitoring. Do not import all the facts. You can, but this would result in a lot of changes. Well, I have to hurry up a little bit because I'm running out of time. The message should be write your own if it is not enough. If you need, for example, Apache, Mesos, and so on, there is Achim over there who wrote one. Not being a developer, but was it complicated? Okay. That's it. Also, they are hookable, so you can write custom modules, so you do not have to write or change any line of code in the directory itself. So write your custom Icinga Web 2 module, providing your own import sources. It works fine. Director also has a REST API, very simple, powerful. Not all the actions are possible already on the API. It allows you to do more with your objects, but more than you can do in the GUI. But for example, there are some objects like the data list that cannot yet be handled through the API. But if you miss something, just open a feature request. It has a CLI, of course. So you can, for example, say, Icinga, oh, this is the wrong host. Icinga CLI director. We have tab completion, so I can say config render, maybe minus benchmark, and so on. Oh, yeah, you can see. Doesn't matter. It has a CLI. And the CLI has -- help, and there's also documentation. I'm sorry, this would be much more to show. Important, what's next? First, live preview for the apply rules. If I have enough time, I'm going to show you a video of this, because it's pretty cool. We want to have more widget-like features in the GUI. We are going to have ACLs. I committed this yesterday evening, so this is in a feature branch right now, and I wanted to show it, but maybe next time. In parallel, we are working, as Bernd mentioned, on a new database schema for Icinga 2. So there's going to be an optional parallel data store you can use. That's going to be much faster. We're already working on it. And it does much less I/O. It's going to write it does not even generate 0.5% of the current write load you have. So instead of 7,000 queries a second, you are going to have 20. So it's really in that relation, because we, for example, do not persist volatile information, but only everything what we need for reporting, for permissions, for showing everything. So it's going to be pretty cool. And that's the reason why we slowed down Director a little bit during the last months, because there are some overlapping features, and we want them to behave nice together and to not create the same things twice. Director is highly modular, as we already learned. You can write custom hooks. For example, you can provide hooks for custom data types, for import sources, for property modifiers. You can also use a ship config files hook, just shipping plain files. The file shipper module does so. So I know people having parts of manual configuration and having a git clone, and when that changes, Director imports it and ships the new manual configuration. That's cool if you have multiple single nodes. Well, use it. Code is on GitHub. All the modules I've shown are also there. The roadmap is online on GitHub. First release was nearly a year ago, and currently stable is 1.3.1. And do not fear to use the Git master if you want to see the fancy new things. We try to not break it. And if we do, we fix it within a very few minutes. That's it. Thank you very much.
Perhaps, so we don't have time for questions, but we can give it a try. Are there questions? Okay. Can you please ask and Thomas repeats it?
Okay.
How is the director handling merging? So if I send something to the API and the user configured something in the GUI, is it merging the configuration?
Yes. So the API, you can choose whether to use post or put to decide whether you want to merge properties or to override them. And you have the same possibility when syncing objects. And this works like this for hosts, also for services. But for services, it's even cooler to use that property override feature we have seen before. So you still have thresholds on a single host and are going to override the defaults on sync services, for example.
Showed us how we can assign, as to say, a service to a group of hosts, for example, and that you were able to override just this parameter for one single host. Is it also possible to override this single host in a way that you don't do this check?
Oh, question is, can I disable an applied service on a specific host. Is that correct? Not yet, but the idea is to use the same mechanism to offer exactly something like this. It's a little bit more complicated because in an apply loop, it's already too late. So what we are going to use it to store a linked blacklist. So you're going to see the assigned service on the host. We are going to strike it, so you can see it has been deleted on that host, and you can undelete it if you want. So that's how we're going to build the feature. We don't have it yet.
Is it possible to import an existing text configuration and all the style?
Question is whether I can import an existing configuration. Well, what you can do is start an Icinga 2 instance with that configuration, and there's one import source called core API, and then import from that node. Problem is that not all properties are exported because that's not possible with that kind of configuration language, because it's like importing from Ruby. So you do not see full inheritance, but all resolved properties. You do not see Icinga DSL, so if-else statements are not imported or not even exported through the API. So you can use it. That's what the wizard does initially, but not for everything.
Okay, the last question.
What about multi-tenancy or configuring multiple satellites?
Configuring multiple, the question is, what about multi-tenancy and configuring multiple satellites? Satellites is just fine. I imported them, I have them here. I can decide which host to put on which satellite. That works fine. Having restrictions based on satellites does not work yet. As a first beta example, yesterday evening for a customer, I imported restrictions based on host groups. They already work. He's already testing it. And this is parts of this are going to be published in the very near future. And a lot of permission-based properties will arrive once we have the new data backend, because there are some overlapping things. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.